For centuries, the oceans had connected the world. Ships carried spices, silk, gold, grain, and people across continents. Empires rose on trade routes, and cities lived or died by the flow of goods. By the early 20th century, the world had become deeply connected, financially, industrially, and socially. Then, in 1929, everything stopped. It began quietly, without explosions or armies. Stock prices in the United States had been rising rapidly for years, driven by optimism, speculation, and borrowed money. People believed prosperity was permanent. Factories expanded, banks lent freely, markets soared beyond reality. On an autumn day in October, confidence collapsed. Selling turned into panic. Prices fell faster than anyone could react. Fortunes vanished in hours. What had seemed like a distant financial event soon became a global disaster. The world entered what history would call the Great Depression. Within months, banks failed across North America and Europe. Savings disappeared overnight. Businesses closed. Trade slowed to a crawl. Ports once crowded with ships became silent. Warehouses stood full, but buyers no longer existed. Unemployment rose to levels never seen before. Men who had built cities stood in breadlines. Families lost homes. Children went hungry. Farmers destroyed crops they could not sell, while cities starved. Across continents, the same scenes repeated. Empty factories, abandoned rail yards, shuttered shops. Governments were unprepared. Economic systems built on growth suddenly faced collapse. Nations turned inward, raising tariffs and closing borders. Instead of recovery, these decisions deepened the crisis. Global trade fell by more than half. Trust between countries eroded. The Depression reshaped societies. In some places, democratic systems struggled to cope with mass suffering. In others, radical movements promised order, pride, and stability. People searched for answers in ideologies that rejected the old world. Fear and desperation made extreme solutions seem reasonable. The effects were not uniform. Some countries collapsed quickly. Others endured years of slow decline. Entire generations grew up knowing nothing but scarcity. Art, literature, and film reflected hopelessness, anger, and resilience. The idea of permanent progress was shattered. Yet, amid the hardship, change began. Governments experimented with new economic ideas. Public works projects employed millions. Infrastructure was built, roads, dams, bridges that still stand today. The role of the state in people's lives expanded permanently, but the scars remained. International relations hardened. Economic suffering fueled nationalism and resentment. Old alliances weakened. New tensions emerged. While the Depression did not cause the next global war alone, it created the conditions that made conflict almost inevitable. By the late 1930s, production returned, but not because the world healed. It returned because the world was preparing for war. The Great Depression did not end with celebration. It faded as factories shifted from consumer goods to weapons, and nations mobilized for survival. The economy recovered, but at a terrible cost. When historians look back, they see more than an economic crisis. They see a moment when the modern world realized how fragile it truly was. A reminder that markets, like empires, can collapse without warning. That prosperity without balance is an illusion. and that silence, empty ports, idle machines, closed banks can be just as powerful as the sound of war. The day the world stopped trading changed everything that followed.